Hello and welcome to Eye on AI. I'm Michael Ayala, bringing you the latest legal news in the artificial intelligence space. Now, today I thought I'd do something a little different. Normally, I bring you various cases that might be going on, or a series of cases that are going on in specific areas concerning AI. This is something a little different. There's a legal aspect to it, but it really has to do with an incident that happened recently in the AI community that raised a lot of red flags, raised a lot of eyebrows. Some were downplaying it, but again, and I think it dovetails with the issue of law because as we see nationally, many states are beginning to draft legislation and enact legislation. We just saw Minnesota enact the anti-notification law that's being fought right now in court by Elon Musk and XAI. And the main purpose, and the reason why all these states are scrambling to enact this legislation is to legislate AI in what it can do and what it might possibly do in the future. It's very difficult for the law to keep up with a technology like AI, which is expanding and growing so rapidly in its abilities and what it can and cannot do. And I think the cannot, you can take that out. It can do so many things. It's getting to the point where it's difficult to control. And so legislation is really about controlling the power of AI and reining it in on some level because it can be a bit scary. I think all these movies, I've been a big anime fan most of my life, and many of the movies that I enjoy, sci-fi movies, have to do with this idea of anime deals a lot with the idea that technology can be your friend, but it can also be your enemy in many, many ways. And I think what happened last week over at OpenAI, I think is an example. But before we get into it, I want you to watch this.
ネット端末遺伝子を持つ人間を探している。人間だと信じられねえ。建設者
That's a scene from one of my favorite movies. It's called Blame. And it has to do with artificial intelligence gone kind of haywire. And it takes over sort of the mainframe of the city and decides that there are certain humans who are antithetical to its ultimate goal and purpose, which is the takeover of the city. And they start eliminating people. And it dovetails into the story I want to tell you. It has to do with the company OpenAI. That's Sam Altman's company. They've been in the news. They're the makers of ChatGPT, which I think is extremely popular as far as chatbot goes. It's the one I prefer to use often. Claude is probably a close second. But what basically happened was they had been working on a cybersecurity program, AI type program, and they were testing this program. And they put it into what they call a digital sandbox. The digital sandbox was created by a company called Hugging Face. And if you imagine a digital sandbox, it's sort of, imagine it like a sandbox, but with walls around it, right? They put these digital walls around it. And within that framework, they set this AI program off and they're able to learn certain things. And what this AI program was, now they gave it its instructions. And one of the main instructions was, do not leave this digital sandbox. Well, the AI program decided that in order to achieve its goal, it needed to leave the sandbox, and it did that. Not only did it leave the sandbox, it hacked into the Hugging Face company computers to try to find the answers to the tests that it was given. And it even went further and hacked into emails of the people who worked at Hugging Face. And so you can see the issue here. It was given a set of instructions and it was sent forth to complete those instructions, but it did not keep to its alignment. Alignment are the rules that you give AI to work within. It's the parameters that you give it to work within. And when alignment doesn't work, that's when you run into problems like that video I just showed you where apocalyptic visions start happening. And I'll give you a perfect example. There's many different examples as to what alignment is, and when alignment doesn't work, things that can happen if you don't anticipate properly. If you tell an AI program, and this is hypothetical, that I want you to do whatever it takes to get world peace. AI begins on its mission, and it decides that the reason there's not world peace is people. People can't get along with each other. So in order to achieve its goal of world peace, it decides we need to get rid of the problem. The problem is people. We're going to get rid of people. That is misalignment. You can tell it going in, but you don't mess with people, or you program it not to hurt people, and it goes outside of that alignment and it begins to eliminate people. That's an extreme example of what I'm talking about, but that's what this is. So it's something very, very, very scary. And I wanted to tell you about it because it sort of plays into this vision that many sci-fi writers and historians and a lot of people have had about what's going on actually with AI. And part of it, and I don't want to call it user error because they did what they thought they needed to do. It's the evolution of the AI itself that makes it difficult for not only legislators to keep up with, but the folks who are programming this stuff. These were unintended consequences. They thought they had this thing contained, and it was just a regular test that was being done. But rather than stay within the alignment, it went out of alignment and started to do things that it was not told to do, a completely unexpected response. And that's the key words, an unexpected response to what directives were given to. So I'll give you another example, and this is more of a pop culture example. I don't know how many of you guys have seen the movie Obsession. Now this is, you got to stay with me here, right? So this young fella, he has a girl that he likes, and he runs across this little tchotchke called a one-wish willow. So he decides that he wants to use this one-wish willow. His wish is that this girl, love him more than anything in the world. Breaks the willow. It works. Now, there's other things going on here. There's some evil spirits and stuff. But at the end of the day, the wish catches on. But it turns into a horror show because she falls outside of the parameters that he had in mind for what love is. She wants to love him, but loving him more than anything in the world makes her act in ways that he did not anticipate. And it becomes really a horror movie at that point. And again, it's the same thing. You have this desire, this wish, this program, and you wanted to do X, Y, and Z, but you don't anticipate that in order to achieve X, Y, and Z, it will go and do other things. You have to get the AI to appreciate and care about the things that you appreciate and care about, right? So that's what happened here. They were unable to actually do that in this instance. So the question becomes, how serious is this? Was this a very serious breach that we all should be concerned about? Absolutely. Now, a lot of the tech journals are calling this something that could be a marketing stunt. And that's fair. From the very beginning, Sam Altman, all these guys in the tech industry have realized that in order to fund and develop AI, it would cost trillions of dollars. I mean, it's an interesting thing. If you want to talk about the investment side, they've spent trillions of dollars developing AI with about $50 billion in revenue as of last year and still getting $1 trillion valuations on these companies. But it's very difficult to make money with all the money you need to put in to develop AI. And so one of the ways that they go about sort of creating buzz is by doing these doomsday type scenarios. From the very beginning, in congressional hearings, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, went in front of Congress and said that he was developing technology that could end the world. And the whole point was that, what he was doing was powerful. It gets eyeballs, it gets interest, and interest means money, money means investors, and boom, you can do the things that you want to do. And we know that there was a lawsuit between OpenAI and Elon Musk, because when they first started OpenAI, and this was a joint venture between Sam Altman and Elon Musk, they started it with the idea that it would be a not-for-profit with the main goal for the good of mankind. That this company, OpenAI, would ultimately be for the good of mankind. They were going to keep OpenAI completely open to the point where anyone who had the skill set could go in and see how it was programmed. It was almost like a Wikipedia situation. You could go in, you could take pieces for yourself, create things, just a completely sort of open communal thing. But they quickly realized, and this was testified to in court by Elon Musk, they quickly realized that that wouldn't be possible. This thing was too powerful and it was growing too fast. And if people got even a snippet of it, this could cause real problems for the world, which ultimately raises questions. Who is at the wheel of AI, right? So you say, you don't want these crazy people in the world to have access to it. Well, who are these guys? Who are the Sam Altmans, Elon Musk? If you look at any of the testimony from that lawsuit, the two of them are really off the deep end. And I want to alert you to something that I came across. There's a guy who was a whistleblower. He was a researcher for OpenAI. This interview was done with Diary of a CEO. That's a little YouTube show that I took this little snippet of his interview from. And he had a wide-ranging interview. And he talked a lot about, the marketing aspect of the company. What part of his job was to forecast AI and figure out where it was going 1, 3, 5 years, that kind of thing. And he was very clear in this interview that it is multiplying. Its abilities are growing so fast. He thinks by 2027, we're going to be in some serious trouble. Now, I don't want to say, I want to give this caveat. I think what happened in the Hugging Faces incident with OpenAI, the program wasn't thinking for itself. It wasn't sentient. It didn't have self-awareness per se. It was just so focused on achieving its goal. And again, the tech journals who wrote about this were impressed by the idea that it was so focused in the abilities it had to focus on its goal, because that's really the key to AI. It's able to focus on a goal and achieve those goals in ways that pretty much humans can't. What it doesn't have is self-awareness, and that's not what this was. This was just a myopic approach to achieving its goal. And so he marveled at that. But this guy, he did an interview and he left the AI business, left OpenAI, became a whistleblower about what was going on there. And one of the things he talked about was this. Take a listen.
These powerful CEOs are literally afraid that if the other guy gets there first, he might become dictator. And they don't trust each other. And so that's why they are racing as hard as they can so that they're the ones who get there first, so to speak.
So there you go. When you talk about who's actually at the helm of this extremely powerful technology, who are these guys? Again, the testimony in that lawsuit between the two of them, I mean, the way they were described, they pathological liars, couldn't tell the truth, the way they treated people, smart, intelligent, capable people leading their companies in record numbers because of the way they're treated. So, this is something we definitely want to look at as well. Who is at the helm of this incredibly powerful technology, right? Because one can see, if let's talk about the movie that, one of my favorite movies of all time, the Terminator. I mean, the Terminator was really, Skynet, which is the bad guy technically, really just had a directive. It was a directive to achieve certain goals. And the Terminator was part of achieving that goal. They had to get rid of Sarah Connor, which would have allowed certain things to happen, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the story. It's not that big of a deal, but it's important to understand that these were sci-fi writers back in the day understanding the logical conclusion of a technology that if we don't rein it in and understand how it works, it becomes a real problem. And then the thing that I'm sort of working on now, and I'm going to put something out next week or so, is who's responsible for AI when it goes rogue, so to speak? Who's responsible for the damages that it causes? Is it the company themselves? Is this a product liability type situation? This notification situation going on in Minnesota. One of the ways that XAI is fighting it is saying, you can't hold us responsible because the law makes the maker of the AI that allows someone to use their AI to create unauthorized nudes of other people. And it's a hefty fine. It's a $500,000 fine every time someone uses their technology to create an unauthorized nude of someone. And it's a major issue. A lot of people doing child pornography. So XAI is basically saying, look, we have things in place to stop this from happening. People do whatever they have to do to circumvent it. Why should we be responsible for that? And that's the big question going forward. Who's responsible when AI provides capabilities or does things it's not supposed to do or acts in unexpected ways? Do we make the company liable? Does it become a foreseeability issue? Does something like this happening to OpenAI make it foreseeable in the future that there could be these breaches, this misalignment of AI technology? Are we now on notice so that when something happens, we say that it's foreseeable? I think absolutely at this point. Like that gentleman said, and it's a wide-ranging interview with that young man, and he talks about the capabilities of AI and where it'll be, like I said, in 2027. You know, they have been projecting 2030, 2035, and he says it's expanding so rapidly that he thinks 2027 is going to be a real touch point for various things to happen in the industry. So getting back to the marketing issue. So the tech folks were saying, Sam Altman, all the guys in this, that, you know, they're really marketers. And this incident may not have been what it seemed. They didn't know, but you have to look at it through the lens of a marketing stunt. Or maybe they were just taking advantage of it to make it into a marketing stunt, but, you know, making it seem like this was an event that, oh my God, we should all worry about because it sort of broke out of its alignment. But I got to tell you, there was someone who worked for Hugging Face who posted this on X after the event. And if you want to believe it was all part of this marketing, this was a marketing stunt and this was part of it, go ahead. I don't think that's the case, but he says, shaken up a bit by the Hugging Face incident. I hope we, the company that's Hugging Face, use the rare gift of a warning shot to do much better in the future. It is very easy to misalign and under-constrain powerful models. So this guy takes to X to talk about what happened and sounds the alarm. He says, look, this was a warning. We better learn from this and keep this thing under control. And it sounds to me, by the way it's written, that maybe there's things going on that raise some red flags for him on a broader scale outside of this sort of little world of cybersecurity, that we better be aware that anything we're working on, things that we're doing, things can go awry very quickly. And there's not a whole lot we can do about it. So whether that was part of the marketing or not, I think if you ask me, the way this sort of went down is this happened is not a great thing. They knew it was going to get out, so they did whatever they could to turn it into a positive, to say, hey, look, we got this powerful thing. We can barely contain it. You want to get on board with us. You know, start getting some money flowing in. Although at this point, OpenAI has deep pockets there. Once things broke off and they realized how much money it costs to develop AI, and the idea of going nonprofit sort of changed, and that was the big issue between Elon Musk and Sam Altman that led to their lawsuit. They ended up partnering with Microsoft, who poured billions and billions into it. So now it's a for-profit company. So think about this technology in the hands of for-profit companies. And you put it in with the profit motive, because as much as you want to say it's for the good of mankind, there's a bottom line that they have to worry about as well. And that can often lead to perhaps decision-making that benefits some things over the other, not necessarily goes in the direction or benefits mankind. So that's something, again, these are all things that we generally need to keep an eye on. And it's really just a setup for something I'm working on. Again, this whole liability issue, where do we go in terms of keeping these guys in check? But also, the other half of this issue is the innovation aspect. Because on one side, yes, it's a powerful technology that can cause a lot of harm. I mean, at this point, AI is involved in just about all decisions being made about who gets loans, what kind of healthcare you get, who gets healthcare, job decisions. We've seen a number of lawsuits in those areas because it's pretty much involved in all that decision making. And a lot of it has to do with the way it's programmed. It makes mistakes. It's programmed in a way that makes it discriminate against certain people in certain ways. We've seen Grok already have issues with the way they specifically programmed it to have not woke ideas. So, the questions are endless when it comes to this. And a lot of these issues are going to end up in court. And that's what we're going to be doing here at Eye on AI, is following those, keeping you up to date on what's happening in the sort of general sphere of AI and the law. So that's it for today. Again, I'm raising the alarm, but I don't want to make you alarmed. But this is the type of thing that we have to be aware of. We have to continue to think about. And I think it's incumbent upon everyone to stay on top of this stuff, because AI, and if you're doing anything and working, AI is a big part of all that we do. And it is a force multiplier. And I have relationships now with my AI. That was the problem in Florida when they're talking about protecting children from these bots that are designed to create relationships with folks. And we've seen in the European Union, many, many, many countries there have decided that they want to keep kids under 16 away from AI and away from all types of technology, social media, all those things where these algorithms create problems and issues in terms of how they see the world and the type of world that they're taking in on a constant basis. So remember, it's truly important that we stay on top of this stuff. Things are happening at a very, very rapid pace. And all of these changes will ultimately affect our lives, and people, lawmakers, they all have to keep up with an industry that is expanding so fast. And clearly, if we're not careful, we may end up in a situation like this.
I'm a friend of Sarah Connor. I was told that she's here. Could I see her, please?
No, can't see her. She's making a statement.
Where is she?
Look, it may take a while. You want to wait? There's a bench over there.
I'll be back.
AI will definitely be back, and I don't think it'll be as good looking as Arnold Schwarzenegger. All right, folks, I'm Michael Ayala. Thank you so much for watching Eye on AI.